Thank you for joining me today for today's webinar on Question Builder. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll be walking you through a brief overview of Question Builder. If you happen to have any questions throughout my session, please feel free to chat those into the Q&A box located at the bottom center of Zoom, and I'll be sure to reserve some time at the end to address your questions. And with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So you'll notice I'm already logged in here to my instructor gradebook. So I got here by logging into my Teach account at teach.hawkslearning.com. And then I clicked on the materials that I'm using for this course. From there, I click on the Assignments tab and we'll come over to Question Builder on this left-hand panel. So you can use Question Builder to create any custom questions that are either static or dynamic to add to your lessons and your web test assignments. So I'll walk through creating a question here and show you the different options that you'll have. So first you'll be asked to create a folder. So click create here. And then you can give it a name. So you can name it after maybe a test that you know you're adding these questions to. So Unit 1 test, for example, or maybe you know it's on adding fractions or nouns, whatever discipline you're teaching. It just helps you with the organization here. So let's do adding fractions. So now that I have my folder created, I can create a question within that folder. So you can add multiple folders. For this example, I'll just create the one. So I'll click on my folder name and then click create here under question options. This is where I'll create my question. So you can add an optional question header. This would include any instructions, maybe a table that students might need to reference throughout the question. This is particularly helpful for multi-step questions. You do have to have a question statement, of course. So for this example, I will create a question on adding fractions. So I will use my expression builder up here to type my values in. Using expression builder for any mathematical equations will help ensure that the values will show up correctly within the student courseware. If you're typing text into the box, there is no need to add that into expression builder. So here I have some shortcuts to enter just common things like fractions that you may enter, exponents, that sort of thing. We do use LaTeX for mathematical expressions. So if you're familiar with that language, you can just type it into the box here. However, if you are less familiar and you would like some documentation, we do have a link here to the wiki page. So for this example, I will enter maybe 1/2 plus 1/2. I'll keep it simple for this example. We can always provide further, more in-depth training if you're curious about how to create a more in-depth or detailed question. So here's my question statement. Now down below, I can enter my answer choices. So it defaults to multiple choice here. We'll talk about the other options here in a minute, but for now, let's enter our multiple choice answers. So we know the correct answer is 1. I'll enter 1 as my answer number 1, toggle this to correct. That way, when a student answers this question, they get the full credit for answer number 1. Maybe we'll put 0 for answer number 2, and I'll just put some answers over here for 3 and 4. Now, if you don't need additional answer choices, you can delete out the additional answers. You do have to have at least 2 answer choices for a multiple choice response. So you can add additional multiple choice answer choices down below here by selecting add another answer. One thing to note here is that we are on radio buttons. So that means students will receive a radio button that they would select to choose the single correct answer. You can toggle over to checkboxes for multiple choice if maybe you had a question where you were asking students to select all that applied to that question. In that case, there would be multiple correct answers. Now you can provide explain error on a per question or per answer basis. So maybe in this case, I want to enter an explain error for answer number 2 for 0. So in the case that a student may be subtracted instead of added, I want to explain that to them. So I'll click show explain error. An explain error box will pop up down here. You'll see this is optional. You do not have to have this to create a question. But I might say something like, it appears you have subtracted instead of added the fractions. And you can provide more detail here if you'd like, but this way, when a student enters this incorrect answer, they would get this explain error explanation with it. Again, this is completely optional. You do not have to have explain errors for your individual answers. All right, so a couple other items up at the top I'd like to mention before we move on from this page is that when you are entering your answers, you do have formatting options up at the top. So you can add in images, charts, special characters, variables. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So if you wanted to create a dynamic question versus the single static question, you certainly could. Expression builder is what we use to start off with to enter our mathematical values. That way they display correctly within the student courseware. Again, you would not need to use that for any sort of text. We'll talk about graph builder here in just a minute as well, where you can build graphs into the questions. And then you have your standard formatting options. So bold, italics, underlining, striking out, exponents, and then formatting as far as centering or moving it over to the right or to the left. So your standard formatting options up at the top. So if you're happy with this question, you can simply save it. And I'll show you in a minute how you would assign it to any lessons or web test. But let's say you maybe wanted to add in tutor components to more closely align with how the Hawks questions are structured. You can add in a hint, a solution, a general explain error, and a step-by-step. These are the tutor components that Hawks offers for our questions. You don't have to have all of these. You can choose one or all if you would like. But again, these are completely optional. So to add them in, you would just simply click on, for example, add hint, and now it will bring you to the hint page where you can add a little teaching tip to point students in the right direction. If you're creating a multi-step question, you can also add additional steps. So we could go always back up to step 1, and then we can move on to step 2. So I'll delete out step 2 for this example. I don't need a second step, and I also don't need the hint. All right, so let's say that I wanted to make this question dynamic. I want for students to get different versions of this question when they're working in Practice and Certify. So I'll double click on my question statement here. And then within Expression Builder, at least for mathematical expressions, again, if this is text only, you don't have to use Expression Builder. I'm going to click the variable manager here and give my variable table a name. This can just simply be called table 1. You just need to be able to reference it when you're going to add your values into your question. So you can create your variable table in Excel if that's easiest for the type of question you're building, or you can simply type the values in here. So for this example, I'll just type the values in. So I know for my very first question, I would like 1/2 plus 1, and I'll add another column to the end, plus 1/2. And finally, I'm going to add in a column for my answer choice. That will be column E. So I know 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. Maybe I'll do 1/3 plus 2/3 is also 1. Maybe I'll do 1/5 plus 2/5, 3/5. And I'll just delete out the rows from the end. So you don't want additional rows or additional columns. Okay, so save, and then you'll click cancel to close out. All right, so then you'll just highlight the values here, choose your variable manager, and you choose the column you'd like to replace the value with. So I'd like to replace column A with my first value. I'll choose insert. I would like to replace value 2 with column B, insert. my third value here with column C, my fourth value here with column D. And I'll say okay. So you'll notice these no longer have the single values, they have the value from the iteration table. Now for my correct answer over here, I'll choose variable manager, and my correct answer is coming from column E for this example. All right, so that's all you have to do to create a dynamic question. Then you could save and preview and go through the different versions of your question that you created. We'll pop over here to free response now. If you ever wanted for students to be able to enter their answer versus choosing a multiple choice or a checkbox, then we would go to free response. And here you would simply type your correct answer in if it's a single version of a question. So to go back to my initial example, 1/2 + 1/2 is 1. This is the correct answer. So just make sure it's listed at full 100% credit. If you are creating a dynamic question, you could do the same thing where you replace this value with the variable manager, at least for a mathematical question, and choose your correct column, column E, for the correct answer here. You do have the option to enter a prefix or a suffix. That way students are not expected to enter that into their answer. So maybe X equals or Y equals, or maybe you have the units here at the end, just to eliminate any possible typing errors that might occur. If you're focused on them entering the correct answer and not necessarily the prefix or the suffix, you can have that automatically added into their answer for them. You can also add another text box here. Maybe you're asking them to enter, I don't know, an X and a Y axis, for example. And so both of those answers would need to be entered in order to get the full credit. You can also add additional answer boxes if maybe you wanted to add in an incorrect answer and then provide that explain error feedback. You'll notice that it defaults here to math. If you ever wanted it to default to text, where students would enter text into the box and it would evaluate them based off of their text that they've entered instead of math that they've entered, you do have that option here. It also defaults here to expression when you choose math. Now I've toggled over to text, but it would have defaulted to expression for the math. If you ever would like it to evaluate differently, you do have options here. And if you're curious to learn more about what those options mean, just click that question mark and it will show you. So if you wanted ordered pairs, for example, over expression, you could choose that. And if you click on read our training documentation, it will give you further details as to which evaluation type would deem an answer correct versus incorrect or accepted as an alternate answer. So this is a very helpful document to go through when you're trying to determine which way you'd like your question to be evaluated. Okay, so we'll pop back over to Question Builder. All right, so down to open-ended. This would be simply an open-ended text box that students would type their answers into. You would then review their web test assignment. We would not recommend adding these 2 lessons because of the formatting of it, where you have to go back and manually grade it. So we do recommend you only add open-ended to web test. You'd review their web test, and then you can manually provide the credit that you deem students would get for this answer. We also have click to select. This is more often used for English type questions. You certainly could use it in other disciplines, but that's just where I've seen it most widely used. So let's say we have a question statement like this. Let's say we put up here in the question header, click to select the nouns in the sentence below. Maybe my sentence is, the pet store has cats, dogs, and fish. Now I'll enter my answer options down below. So for this example, I'm just going to do every word. So I'm going to separate every answer choice or every word by a comma. So the pet store has cats, dogs, and fish. All right, and then I'm going to select the answers below that are correct. So I'll choose all of the nouns. And you'll notice all the other answer choices are available for students to select within the question, within the statement, but they are incorrect. You'll notice you can also do explain error for those incorrect answers here. So if you're fine with this, then you just save and move on. You can also do click to insert. So maybe instead of selecting the nouns, I say click to insert the commas into the sentence below. And let's use the same example. So the pet store has cats, dogs, and fish. I have my missing commas here. So I can enter the answer choices that students could select. I could do it between every single word if I'd like. Or you could pick and choose where you'd like the answer choices to be. And now I can determine which answer choices would be correct. So we'll find after cats, that's number 5. I'll toggle to correct. After dogs, that's number 6. And all the other answer choices would be incorrect. You'll notice you have the explain error here as well. Okay, so that's it as far as the question types go. The final thing I wanted to touch on is Graph Builder up here. This is one of our newer tools that we've released over the last probably about year and a half. And we're continuously expanding what you can do with this graph building tool. So you can add graphs into the question statement and into answer choices. You can add in points, lines, parabolas. I won't go down the list. I'll let you take a look here yourself. But these are the options you have as far as building graphs into the questions. From there, you can completely customize that graph and again, add it into the question statement and into the answer choices. Just to clarify, this wouldn't be student-directed graphing. So you cannot yet create a question where students could graph their answer on a plot. Hopefully that's coming soon. Our teams are aware that this is a high need and they are actively working towards it. But currently you can at least create a graph and add that into the statement and the answer choices. All right, so finally, I'll move on to adding a custom question into a lesson. Let me just go ahead and save a question here. So you will be asked to give your question a name. So in this case, since I have my question statement as this, let's just call it nouns. And you can choose a low difficulty, medium, or high. This is just your own judgment call. For this example, let's actually just go over and make this align with what we were expecting to see with the nouns. So add another answer choice. Cats, dogs, fish. Okay, so has and be are incorrect. Cats, dog, fish are correct. So we will save and preview. So I can see, here's my question statement. Here are my answer choices. Cats, dogs, and fish are correct with 100%. All right, so let's close out of Question Builder and hop over to our gradebook. So down to curriculum, we would click into our class name. Now I am in a math gradebook, but you get the idea. It works the same way for any discipline. We'll click into the lesson we'd like to add the question to. And over here on the left-hand panel, you will select Instructor Created from the drop-down menu. Then you'll find your folder name and your question, where you would simply click Add to add it to this question bank for this assignment. Then you just save changes down at the bottom right. To add this to a web test assignment, you would go to the Assignments tab and Web Test. You click the paper pencil edit icon to add it to a web test assignment you've already created. or click Create New, which will open Assignment Builder here. And from the question bank dropdown in the upper left, you would choose Instructor, find the folder, and then add the question. Now, since it's on the right-hand panel, it is on my web test assignment. So if you're not familiar with editing your curriculum or creating a web test, we'd certainly be happy to provide more one-on-one training to help you with that and help you add any instructor-created questions into the assignment. But for today's purpose, I'll just quickly mention how to find the instructor folder in each of those areas. So we do have time now for questions. I hope this was helpful for you as you prepare for the new term and as you're working on possibly adding in custom questions throughout the term as the need may arise. But as I mentioned, I've added time now at the end for any questions that you may have. So please feel free to chat those into the Q&A box at this time. So I see there's a question, are you also able to use shapes and expression builder? So not an expression builder, but let me pop in there, depending on what exactly you're looking for with the shapes. I wonder if the graph builder may work for you. And I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding your question, but we can always connect one-on-one too. I would encourage you to reach out to your training and support representative for further training, or you can always just reach out to our main team. But if we go into create a question and we use graph builder, these are the shapes that you could add. I hope this would meet your needs. Again, add into the Q&A box if it doesn't, and if I can clarify any further. But with the expression builder, to answer your next question, you asked, so you're literally creating the different iterations manually? Yes, you have control over that. So within the variable manager, you would add in your own values here. Or again, if it's a mathematical question, you could create an Excel and then copy those values into the table here. The rows and columns will automatically adjust for you. So hopefully using Excel would help make things easier depending on the type of question you're creating, and then just copy over to this expression builder here. And then we got the question, was this video recorded and can I review it later? Yes, it is being recorded and it will be sent out by our marketing team for you to view later. Good questions. Any other questions right now? Julie asked, where will the videos be found on our website? I'm pretty certain. Julie, I'm writing down your name now, and anybody else who would like to have these recordings sent to them. We will follow up with you. I am actually not certain myself where exactly these will be housed, but typically we follow up with any attendees with the recording. So if that's not the case, we will reach out to you individually and make sure that you have the link to this recording. Any other questions? Once a question has been created, are there any other types of file you could save it as in addition to a Word document? So once you've created your question and added it to an assignment, say a web test assignment, then that web test could be exported to Word, which from there you could then save as possibly a PDF. Is there a certain type of file you're hoping to be able to export it as or save it as? Oh, a CVS or a zip. Now, I actually recently researched this because I had somebody reach out about changing a Word file into a CSV file to be uploaded to their learning management system. Is this possibly the reason why you're asking? Okay, yes. So I was not familiar with that process, but I did a little bit of research and it seems like it is possible to convert a Word file into a CSV file. Now, if you're uploading it to your learning management system, I'm not sure exactly the way the formatting would need to be for the questions and answers to upload properly there, but I would encourage you to give it a try. I was able to successfully convert a Word file of our questions into a CSV file, but from the instructor side, uploading it to the learning management system, I'm just not sure how all of that will go. So I would encourage you to give it a try, and then certainly reach out to us or your training and support representative if you experience any issues or have questions about it. I just am not familiar with the formatting from the LMS side as far as what exactly that would need to look like, but it certainly is possible. I do know that to convert from a Word document to a CSV. Any other questions? You're welcome, Julie. I'm glad this training was helpful. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, then I will let you guys get back to it. I know it's a busy time of the semester, so we wish you all the best luck with the start of the term. Thank you all very much.